We begin in Ferguson, Missouri, where hundreds of residents defied a curfew overnight to continue protests against the shooting death of a black teen last week. Police fired tear gas and smoke grenades at protesters. 7 people were arrested early this morning, and there are reports of 1 person being shot amid the operation. The victim is believed to be in critical condition, though it is unclear if they were a part of the protests or a bystander.
Palestinians and Israelis are set to resume peace talks in Cairo today, but Israel's prime minister says any deal must guarantee Israeli security. Hamas has warned Israel will only have security when the siege of Gaza is lifted. Israelis have been accused of limiting Gaza's access to everything from construction materials to medical supplies. The renewed talks come ahead of the expiration of a 5-day ceasefire on Monday. For more, we go to Tel Asor's Noor Herzin, who is on the ground in Gaza.
Tomorrow is the last day of the 5 days ceasefire in Gaza, and the people of Palestine, the people who are residents in the Gaza Strip, are taking advantage of these precious last days and last hours. They are out buying as much supplies as they can. The people who returned back to their homes close to the border are back to the UNRWA schools and to the hospitals, to the shelters, fearing that a new Israeli escalation is going to occur. However, the Palestinian delegation is again on their way to Cairo to continue the negotiations, and the Palestinian people are waiting for an announcement, but not an announcement for a short-term truce for 5 days or 72 hours. They're waiting for a long-term truce, granting them a peaceful life where the operation on Gaza ends and at the same time the borders are open, the siege on Gaza is lifted.
In Iraq, Kurdish fighters are advancing on Mosul Dam, and they say they have already retaken a number of towns near the strategic site. At least 9 airstrikes have been conducted by the U.S. in the area over the weekend. The dam is held by the Islamic State group. Meanwhile, in Syria, Yazidi volunteers have flocked to Kurdish-run training camps to fight the Islamic State. Thousands of Yazidis have been displaced by the Islamic State's offensive in both Iraq and Syria.
This weekend, Colombian peace talks resumed in Havana, Cuba. On Saturday, victims from both sides of Colombia's decades-old civil war spoke for the first time at the negotiating table. They urged both government forces and the FARC rebels to reach a lasting deal to end the fighting. Over 200,000 people have died in 50 years of civil war in Colombia. Most of the victims are civilians. Peace talks were launched in late 2012.
Millions are celebrating across Indonesia today, commemorating the country's 69th Independence Day. Indonesia began its fight for freedom on August 17, 1945, just days after Japan's occupation of the archipelago ended. Today, Indonesians celebrate their independence with an eclectic mix of solemn official services, like military parades and flag-raising ceremonies, and lighthearted competitions like sack races, cracker-eating competitions, and palm tree climbing.
In what will be one of the most high-profile legal cases to take place in Venezuela in recent years, the trial of jailed Venezuelan opposition leader Leopoldo López will now go ahead on the 28th of August. While proceedings were meant to begin this week against the former mayor, the trial was delayed for a 3rd time due to problems surrounding the submission of evidence. The political leader is being prosecuted alongside 3 student leaders for his role in the violent barricades which rocked the country earlier in the year and which led to the deaths of 43 Venezuelans. Back in February, López's supporters mounted blockades across main roads in various cities, denying residents access to food, gas and water, and even emergency medical services, with ambulances refused passage by the barricaders. They were responding to López's calls in the media to force the exit of the socialist government of Nicolás Maduro. Over several weeks, López refused to condemn the violence despite the mounting death toll, and instead called on supporters to maintain their pressure on the government.
Usted, señor Maduro, haga lo que haga, Esto que comenzó no va a parar hasta que se conquiste el cambio.
At the centre of this prominent case is a debate over freedom of expression in the country, with Lopez's defence lawyers arguing that he was simply exercising his constitutional right to freedom of speech. Yet many, such as constitutional law expert Jesus Silva, think that Lopez prioritised his political ambitions over the lives of ordinary citizens.
He kept on calling for more protest, so he knew the result that was coming, but he didn't care about it, and he kept on calling for more protest and boosting violence.
With the date of the trial now set, with no further delays possible, the 28th of August will see this debate played out in the capital's principal courthouse. Rachel Boothroyd, Telesur, Caracas, Venezuela.
Central America is the region with the highest rate of underage pregnancy in the continent. There are national strategies focused on providing services to pregnant girls to prevent them from getting pregnant again. Better sex education is one of the services that is especially needed.
This clinic was created with the purpose of reducing the rate of teenage pregnancy, or if they were already pregnant, to avoid a second pregnancy, by giving them family planning or sex education so that if they have a sexual partner, they can avoid getting pregnant again, allowing them to continue their studies.
An important factor of underage pregnancy besides lack of sexual education is sexual abuse. This year, 14 cases of girls aged 11 or 12 have been reported at Tegucigalpa's public hospital. The high level of violence in Central America plays an important role in the high teenage pregnancy rates.
Para nosotras, el aumento en embarazos adolescentes tiene que ver con varias cosas. Una,
For us, the increase of teenage pregnancy has to do with many things. First is that, as society has advanced, there are fewer restrictions on young people sexually, even though there is social conservatism.
Aunque existe la censura social, hay una doble moral, las y los jóvenes.
There's also a double standard, and young people start to have an early active sexual life based on misinformation. The second is the existence of a violent and militarized context in the country, in where women of all ages suffer sexual violence.
Donde cada vez más niñas y más mujeres sufren violencia sexual.
8 new cases of underage pregnancy are attended each day in Tegucigalpa's public hospital. Gerardo Torres, Telesur, Central America.
Facts that have marked the course of history. Productions designed in the English language and made for the English-speaking world. This is Documentary. Watch it on telesur.net/English. Telesur, wherever the news, you'll be there.